Hello, friends. It's been a little while, and now we're coming back to the center of the synthesis for petal number 7. It's the sacrifice knowledge petal, the sub-knowledge petal of the sacrifice tier, very important for the first initiation. The first petal, I believe, to which the rod of initiation is applied with strong reflex effects upon the 5th petal and also the 6th in the love tier. So we're here at the beginning of Egoic Lotus webinar commentary number 51, and it is the synthesis for petal number 6. We have just been looking at the order of the series of astrological signs associated with the petals. If one begins with the first petal at Aries, and we have discussed Libra in this respect. It's been quite a extensive discussion here in relation to this sign, and if we were to go clockwise, which is not the way of the normal zodiac as we understand it, we would find Libra as well. So moving, backwards through the signs in clockwise order with Aries, Pisces, Aquarius, etc., we would also find Libra. And my thought here is I wonder how much sense it would make to go clockwise or backwards from the 5th petal onward, because at that point the angel of the soul is the downward gazing soul, and the solar angel is taking an active interest in the man from the time work is being done there, and especially, I suppose, once the stage of aspiration is reached. What could be emphasized, however, is the contrary motion of the wheel. It is a rending process caused by the man seeking to bring his energies forward towards the higher chakras, and yet the tendency of the personality to drive the fiery energies below the diaphragm and continue its opposition to the rising of the man and the rising of his energies. So when you have these signs determined, for instance, in this petal, we will have the sign Libra and Libra, and one goes towards the heavenly marriage, that is the counterclockwise indication of Libra, and the other more towards ordinary unions and the ordinary social types of activities which Libra represents. In the next petal we will have, for instance, we will reach in a way a Scorpio petal, and yet that's petal number 8, and yet if we were to go clockwise, that is backwards through the zodiac, we have Virgo. Now, of course, Scorpio and Virgo are very connected as the double M signs. And if we were to go to the 9th petal in the counterclockwise natural zodiacal mode, we will have Sagittarius. And representing the clockwise wheel, we will have Leo. And of course there could be a big struggle there between the ahamkara of man, the simple I am, and the tendency, third initiation tendency towards I am that. So usually when we talk about the rulership of a petal by a sign, we don't differentiate between oriented towards the higher or oriented towards the lower of the pairs of opposites. But perhaps in this case, when we're dealing with petals beyond the 5th, which definitely relate to the path of probationary discipleship and the path of probationary initiation, perhaps the sign indicated by the clockwise motion tells us something of how the tendencies in that petal could work against the advancing tendencies. So the ordinary Libran tendencies, which lead us towards all kinds of unions in the world of form, could, in that sense, oppose the tendency towards the union with the soul, the heavenly marriage, and so forth. At least that's one theory that we can advance. Now, if we go on to the number 32, and we begin with Pisces and proceed in clockwise order, from one perspective, we are cleaning up continuously and analyzing ourselves to be rid of glamour, because we are at the period of the first initiation. We have much to cleanse in the physical nature. From the higher perspective, so much depends upon how an individual will use the available energy, the quality of the form. This is the birthplace of the Christ, in a sense. This is the place of the first initiation. The physical glamours are being somewhat reduced. The physical disciplines are continuing, trying to sort out the confusion and get clear. Will Virgo help with this? Most definitely. And there's a sense in which we're also sorting out our aspirations and our desires and trying to discriminate aspiration from desire. That certainly continues at the time of the first degree. But it's a kind of interesting. There is a tendency perhaps to fall back into materiality. It is said of Virgo in its ordinary mantram, not the truly spiritual mantram, let matter reign. And so if this is, in a sense, ruled by Virgo in the counterclockwise manner, instead of going ahead to the marriage of the soul, or with the soul, there could be the tendency to fall back into the form, the matter, the personality, which has a lot to do with the material Virgo energy. See, that's an attempt to interpret the sign as part of the clockwise wheel. Virgo is part of the clockwise wheel. I haven't done that very much in any of these signs. I've just talked about the general tendencies. But now when we're moving into an area of the egoic lotus where the tendency is definitely to move forward on the path, a path of discipleship, path of probationary initiation, it is probably interesting to consider what the counterpoles might be, because the combat between the dualities is very strong on this path of probationary initiation. There's always a burning ground before the initiation on which we have to fight with previous tendencies which do not want to see the consciousness advance. So I think we can understand how that would work. Really, any sign can be used for better or for worse in the drama which every petal presents. And the drama of the dualities only intensifies as we move towards the third initiation, before which we find what the Tibetan describes as a fearful conflict. This is on page 71, I believe, of Esoteric Astrology. A fearful conflict, and the fear, I suppose, is on, it relates to relinquishing the ordinary sense of self and merging into the larger self. It's a loss of the foundational sense of selfhood, and that, I suppose, can be quite a terrifying thing. And also the fear that comes in the face of what we might call, in relation to the ninth petal, the Tibetan has called it actually, the utter sacrifice of all forever. Okay, so, but in terms, there is even a sense in which Virgo and Libra were once one sign, and not as much is discussed about that one sign as about the Leo-Virgo unity as one sign, namely the Sphinx. But we can see here how the preparation for the birth of the Christ proceeding under Virgo would apply, and all of the house cleaning that must be done, and especially physical purification and achieving a new type of balance in the chakras of the etheric body under Libra. So a cleansing and balance would go together in this taking of the first initiation. Okay, are there other signs? This is number 33. Are there other signs implicated here for this seventh petal? And what is the meaning of their involvement? So I've listed quite a few signs, maybe really all of them relate to the taking of this initiation: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Pisces. I haven't mentioned Aquarius, but we could probably find a way in which that is also true. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and what have I left out? Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. I've left out the sign Cancer, and I've left out the sign Aquarius. But of course, we can always find the relations, even, let's say, via the third ray for Cancer and the third ray association with Aquarius, and the increasing abstraction and mentalization involved in this petal, and the joining of some kind of group consciousness. This can be found in Aquarius. We know that at the first degree, the soul begins to really assert itself, and its assertion is along the line of group consciousness, hence the Aquarius implication. Well, there are greater or lesser degrees of involvement of the various signs. With Aries, we have the first initiation, and this is the plunge, we might say, into the new kingdom, the kingdom of God, the spiritual kingdom, as it's called. And Aries always is the sign of initiation. Eventually, it will be the preeminent sign of initiation, taking over from Capricorn after the development of increasing sacredness of the earth. So whenever there is a new area of life to be entered, Aries is there found. So very definitely at the first initiation. Taurus, from one perspective here, is all about the accumulation of knowledge and subsequent illumination. We definitely have Vulcan at the first initiation, the esoteric ruler of Taurus and the hierarchical ruler. There's a lot of, well, not only Ray 4, it has a lot of Ray 4, and via Venus, Ray 5. So increasing light in general, the light of the soul beginning to shine in the mind and in the personality in general, the increasing light at the Ajna center, the integrated personality is being subjected to the light of the soul and to the will of the soul. Vulcan, let's just call it the will of the soul. Well, we can't do that, can we? Will of the soul. Okay. So there is the following in Taurus of the way of determined orientation to the things of, well, of the soul and spirit, later the spirit, first the soul. Taurus connected with what the Tibetan calls enlightened, enthusiastic will, and maybe even more so for petal 8 at the second degree. So let's see, if there's anything else that I could say. Well, yes, and let's just say Taurus, also Taurus, and the control of the physical body. We found this in the labors of Hercules, found that the control of the sex instinct was a prominent subject in the Taurus labor of Hercules. So Taurus drove the bull, which represents the instinctual nature, to the island of the one-eyed men, and that would, finally represent the third degree when one becomes truly one-eyed. This is just a little bit, and in general there's more that can be discussed here. Gemini, we have the soul personality dialogue, the higher mind in relation to the lower mind, and this petal is all about sacrifice through knowledge, and Gemini equips us with a great deal of knowledge and a versatile use of knowledge. With Gemini, the versatile use of knowledge for, let's say, second-ray purposes, as this sign is prominently on the second ray. So we have, and there's some of the third ray involved here as well. But when we talk about the application of all knowledge to the control of the lower man and to service, Gemini can be considered to be prominent here. Here's another reference to Gemini which is important. The secret of Gemini has to be grasped at the first initiation, because it is the mystery of the relation of father, mother, and child. This is a very different approach to Gemini and to the first initiation. Usually we talk about the relationship of father, mother, and child in terms of Virgo. The birth of the Christ child upon the physical plane is the consummating glory of the Gemini force, which is largely at this time a second ray force. So it is the bringing of the soul into incarnation. And we would normally associate that with Virgo, but the Tibetan instead associates that with Gemini as well. Mercury is the son of mind, who is the Christ, and Mercury is very strong in both Gemini and Virgo, and it is the ruler of Gemini and Virgo, and exalted in Virgo as well. So this takes us back to the days of individualization and why it is occurring. It is creating a new kingdom, which is a blending of the fifth kingdom and the third. So we are we are intent upon the Christing of matter, and we start this with individualization. And isn't it interesting how important the sign Gemini is at the time of individualization? Gemini, Leo, Cancer, those three signs, very prominent at this coming into the state of individual consciousness through the intervention of the solar angel. Of course, sorry, this is the leftover of my flu here. I hope we can bear with this. The solar angels are deeply connected with Gemini, and especially with the higher of the twins, the Pollux, the one who represents the spiritual kingdom. So we will start at individualization, and we will help transform the Earth. Gemini, the Earth is the hierarchical ruler in Gemini, help transform the Earth and make it a sacred planet. So becoming a first-degree initiate is part of the process of preparing to make the sacred planet or the Christed planet. I think when we look at Sirius, Gemini, Sirius, and the Earth, we have a very important triangle. Or if we look at Sirius, Gemini, Venus as a triangle in relation to the Earth, we understand the kind of forces which are contributing to the sacralization of the Earth. The gates are the pillars of Hercules. We are entering incarnation. We are leaving incarnation. The beginning of the first initiation is the triumph in humanity of the second ray over the third. Gemini, in a way, is connected with the third ray, but even more, especially with the second ray at this time. And we are making sure, through Gemini, of the dominance and the grounding, the landing, the embodiment of this Christ force. Different ways of, well, I think Gemini is very connected with the first initiation, really. I mean, the Christ is being brought into incarnation on the earth, and the earth here is, in a way, the personality of the human being. It's Christ being born in matter, and the earth represents matter and form, both. So it's kind of a union between the second and third ray, and we might say that the lower part of Gemini represents the third ray, and the higher part, the first ray. That's from one perspective. And then once there is a soul personality union, then the higher part of Gemini represents the first ray, and the lower part, the combination of the second and third ray, or the soul-infused personality. Now, when we consider Cancer, well, Christ was born in a manger, and Cancer is the sheepfold, is the manger, where the animals of the personality are to be found, the four lunar elementals. So in this sense, the Christing of the individual at the first initiation in a vehicle, in a vessel, shows the connection of the sign Cancer representing the vehicle at the first initiation. There are other ways that Cancer can be associated with knowledge, and also through its third ray, and through its seventh ray, it represents embodiment of the second aspect within the third aspect. So the seventh ray really is the concretization of the form in such a way that it can receive the Christ force. Well, Leo actually rules the first initiation. We are said to take this initiation in or under the sign Leo, meaning if it's our sun sign, it's in the sign. If it's our rising sign, we are taking the first initiation under the sign Leo. So this is the birth of a new type of individuality, which is, in a way, the seed of group consciousness. And eventually in Leo it will be said, I am that, instead of simply I am, and this will represent group consciousness, and this certainly is confirmed in a significant way at the first initiation that we can associate with this petal. Virgo, of course, counting backwards from Pisces, we find it, and we're told when DK describes the various crises that this is the crisis of the birthplace. Virgo represents the crisis of the birthplace. And there's a lot, discipleship is really beginning at this point in earnest, and in a way we're stepping off the path of probationary discipleship onto the path of true discipleship, which will see us making a strong pledge, keeping our pledge, continuing as an accepting disciple, and working towards the stage of accepted disciple. So it fits very well at the seventh petal, because the path is beginning in earnest at this petal. Libra we have discussed pretty thoroughly. It's, in a sense, the pivot point between the kingdoms. Between the, well, Libra is another one of those signs. It's associated both with the fourth kingdom and with the fifth kingdom as well. So in its association with the fourth kingdom, it brings in the third ray. In its association with the fifth kingdom, it brings in the second ray. And it's only later, when we're studying some of the paths of higher evolution, that we understand the connection of Libra also with the second ray, and also inasmuch as it brings in divine love and understanding, it's connected with the second ray. So the pivot point, as I said, once they were one sign, you know. Talk about the law nature of Libra. It fits here. We are, at this point, to become citizens of the fifth kingdom, the kingdom of souls, the kingdom of God, and there are new laws to be applied in a new kingdom, new laws for a new kingdom, and especially laws of the soul. Law, and let's see if I did this. Laws of the soul. Yeah, laws of the soul. Okay. So the law of magnetic impulse is especially connected with Libra, but also all of these laws in general. Libra is the sign of the law of regulating our behavior in a just and true manner with all others in relationship. What law is a force which holds the pattern of the archetype. I'll put that down. Law is a force which holds the archetypal pattern. If we don't have law, we have the expression of patterns which are non-archetypal, and therefore the will of God, or the purpose of God as expressed in archetype, will not be fulfilled upon the earth in the lower worlds. We will have all kinds of other patterns, and they may be very dissonant with the archetypal pattern which is intended to manifest. Well, this is just a little bit about each. You know, if you are, let us say, born in or under a particular sign, you can study your sign in relation to the tasks which have to be fulfilled in order to bring about the fulfillment or the unfoldment of this first petal, before, during, and following the first initiation. Okay, now with Scorpio, well, you know, even with Libra, sex, money, and comfort, these are the heads of the Scorpio. But, you know, with Libra also, we have the tests of sex, and money, and comfort. But in Scorpio, these tendencies are really tested. So we have the appearance. Well, should I say we have the test in Libra? We have the strong tendencies towards sex, money, and also comfort. There's an old saying, I'm not sure it's really true, but there is a saying in astrology that it's got a lot of L's in it. It says, lazy Libra loathes the duster, meaning doesn't like to clean up so much as Virgo does. Of course, that's just a generalization, and I'm sure there are many Libran people who love the duster. But anyway, that's how the tradition goes in relation to that sign. So we have these strong tendencies related to the sacral center, which is ruled by Uranus, and also being the esoteric ruler of Libra. And in Scorpio, these tendencies are tested out. So there's the testing potency of Scorpio is found in relation to 3 initiations. In relation to 3 initiations, and then found in another way following the 3rd initiation. But at first, this testing tendency is very present, and the physical tests are what we're passing through. So, are what we are passing through at the first initiation. So, actually, if I were to go to, I guess it's around page 542 or so of Cosmic Fire. Let's just see, something like that. It talks about the petal of knowledge for the mental plane. Its unfoldment gains the period, marks a period where a man consciously utilizes all he has gained or is gaining under the law for definite benefit of humanity. Okay, that we know. I think we have to look rather at page 823. Let us try that. And here, okay, maybe it's at 822. Let's get that. Oh, we were too far. I did it incorrectly. 823. That's more like it. The will to sacrifice on the mental plane and thus to serve. The will to sacrifice on the mental plane and thus intelligently to dominate the entire threefold lower man. That's where the control comes in at the first initiation, and especially the physical part of the threefold lower man is dominated, and that physical part relates very much to a Uranus, which is the esoteric ruler of Libra. Of course, Saturn is the big planet in Libra, being both the hierarchical ruler and as well the exalted planet. And so it's a very Saturnian sign, and it has a lot to do with the 3rd aspect of divinity, of which the physical body is the best, in a way, representation, just as the astral body represents the 2nd aspect and the mental body represents the 1st aspect of divinity. Okay, so there is the association of Scorpio always with the first 3 initiations, and it does appear here testing us out in terms of sex, money, and comfort. It's not that these tests are completely resolved at the 1st degree, but they are resolved with sufficiency to allow a man to continue his progress and to prove that he is not the complete victim of any one of these tendencies in the instinctual nature. There's so many of them. They are really associated with the sacral center, very, very definitely. Okay. Now, Sagittarius. Well, we are becoming the one-pointed disciple at the time of the 1st degree, and Sagittarius indicates and rules the first 2 degrees. DK talks about initiations 1 and 2, especially in relation to Sagittarius. We're setting our sights upon the higher mind, or even upon the abstract mind with which Sagittarius is connected. The free and expansive mind, which is separated from form, and so the power of abstraction is quite strong in some of the more highly developed Sagittarians. Our orientation is definitely towards the kingdom of God, and knowledge is being focally applied to control the physical nature, especially, and Sagittarius is connected. I think I have to put that in. Sagittarius connected with the physical nature. No, that won't do. Okay, it is ruled actually by the earth esoterically, and we do find many Sagittarians into the physical disciplines and exercise of the physical body in general. So we're using our higher abilities to control the etheric physical nature, which has a lot to do with Earth, and Earth is the ruler esoterically of Sagittarius and hierarchically of Gemini. Okay, well, we could ponder on this and find other ways in which it works. But let's just say the vision of the soul is coming in very strongly now, because we are taking the first initiation, and that higher of the pairs of opposites, we are reaching towards it. It's becoming a very real goal and objective, and these, of course, are the words associated with Sagittarius. All right, I seem to be going through all of the different signs. I guess the different petals that in the sacrificed here have 5 colors, and they are more complex. Just as we rise through the chakras, they have more petals and more potencies connected with them. So it's no wonder that we can find a way in which every sign of the zodiac is importantly connected with the tasks associated with the petals of sacrifice. Well, Capricorn is a classic here. This sign is connected with the birth of the Christ. We know that Christmas, or the birth of the Christ, occurs at the Capricorn time of year, the winter solstice. So it represents not only the heights as appreciated on the mountaintop, but also the density of matter, and the Christ, or the great second ray force, is born here in the density of matter. So it's a very sacrificial type of process, whereby the great Lord of the second aspect is firmly incarnated in the density of matter at the time of Christmas, and there is the great promise for all of us in terms of the Christ unfoldment in our nature. Aquarius, I did mention, it's more about group consciousness, and we're entering the regime of group consciousness with the process of initiation. Aquarius is definitely connected with the kingdom of souls, into which we are entering, and we are oriented towards the hierarchy, which has been called the Society of Organized and Illumined Minds. We're beginning a life which will take us towards the impersonality of Aquarius. It's one of the most more impersonal signs, and towards the hierarchy, initiation leads us. Put it this way: initiation leads us into membership in the spiritual hierarchy of the planet. So Aquarius does apply. We are stepping into the kingdom of souls. All of hierarchy in that kingdom is ruled by Aquarius, in a sense, and it's all about the new. Aquarius is one of those signs that gives us a fresh view of life and a new type of energy participation after we have fulfilled our obligations in Capricorn. And it's very connected with the etheric body. This sign is, as is Gemini. I should have mentioned that. And there's a lot of cleaning out of the etheric body at the time of the first initiation, and we have to learn how to really control the physical body from the etheric body at that time, governed by the mind. So instead of being such physical beings, we are starting to become more ethereal, more etheric beings, and in that way Aquarius would fit with this connection to the first initiation. It's a Libran petal, Libran, Aquarius, air signs, Libra, Aquarius, Gemini. They all fit here prominently. Well, when we come to the last sign, Pisces is involved, and we are certainly strongly under the law of sacrifice. The whole path of initiation is the law of sacrifice. Let's see if I can, this is going to be, I think I'm into a little, let's try that one. Let's see how it works. Okay. Trying to even out my fonts here. So the Pisces petal, or Pisces in relation to this petal, involves Pluto, which is the esoteric ruler and hierarchical ruler of Pisces, and we can begin at this stage of the first degree and a little before to use these esoteric rulers. We are beginning the path of relinquishment, and Pluto, we have been told, is extremely strong pre-first initiation indicator, along with Vulcan. We are cleansing ourselves from the past. We might put it this way. So, via Pluto, we cleanse our psyche and energy system from past influences. They come up and are dissipated. And we are transferring onto the fixed cross. Well, there's so many things that can be said here. Transferring onto the fixed cross. And Pisces is the sign of transfer. Off the mutable, MTX, mutable cross, to the fixed cross. So we find it to be a transitional sign from the high areas of the later mutable cross onto the fixed cross, which really begins in earnest at the first degree with entry into the kingdom of God. I mean, there's a lot of overlapping going on here, and, you know, as we are true probationary initiates and really struggling to get ourselves in hand, fixed cross influences are already coming in, but by the time we have taken the first degree, we are mounted upon the fixed cross in all truth and actuality. So I guess we've really seen how all 12 signs can be related to the themes which are occurring with the development and unfoldment of the seventh petal. Now, we've been told that, you know, quite a number of those who are students of esotericism and many people in the world have taken this first degree. It doesn't necessarily mean that because we are a student of esotericism we have absolutely taken the first degree, but many have. And so the development of this petal and working within it to achieve a new type of balance and etheric control is relevant to many people, and this utilization of whatever we have gained in terms of knowledge to the control or the discipline of the physical body and generally of the whole personality is relevant to those people who have taken or are taking the first degree. Okay, well, I think that gives an idea at least, and that's what we want to have. And then every student of the wisdom will have to work this out in his or her own life. It's so vitally important to see where we stand and what we are really doing. The next step ahead has to be understood, but also in the larger context of our particular task in a particular life or series of lives. And if we could have a good idea of what that life is supposed to accomplish, what our karmic liabilities are that have to be overcome, what the general series of lives in which we are engaged is meant to accomplish, then we are beginning to enter into the consciousness of the solar angel, which we are told sees a few lives ahead, a few lives backwards, at least focuses on those. Maybe it could see more if it were profitable, and then can direct the man properly towards what must be accomplished. Now, the next category signs implicated on the basis of color. Well, I guess we look at the color again, right? And we have yellow, orange, green, violet, and rose. 5 colors. Okay, so let's see here. So we have Gemini, always connected with the yellow, and we've seen how this new relationship between soul and personality is connected there. Also the yellow of the law of sacrifice. Pisces, well, rose color is much connected with Pisces, but also the color lavender is the color DK actually gives, but the devotion and the sacrifice and the relinquishment and the elevation of desire, all of this is colored by the idea of rose, the transmutation of the astral body. Leo for orange and the increasing vitality conferred as the soul takes a stronger Vulcanian grip upon the personality and vitalizes it through the etheric body. Capricorn for green, of course, also, well, yeah, Capricorn is particularly green. I suppose the violet is connected because of the 7th ray, and really understanding how to use the 3rd aspect indicated by green for purposes of the 2nd aspect. Cancer is related to violet, and for the magical embodiment, which starts to happen at the 1st degree, even the throat center begins to be ruled by the 7th ray. The 7th ray is the major ray for the first initiation, and it really indicates the embodiment of the Christ, the birth of the Christ in the manger, which is Cancer again. Okay, let's go on now to the major great constellation most implicated. What are the 3 great constellations, which are 3 major centers, I believe, in our local one about whom naught may be said? Canis Major, well, Sirius within Canis Major, the Great Bear, and the Pleiades. Pleiades may be the most central of all. So Sirius really comes in here. Sirius is behind all of our initiations. Our entire initiatory regime is an expression of Sirian energy, and the Great White Lodge, or sometimes called the Blue Lodge, on Sirius. So now we are really beginning our method of Sirian training. And when we're really, in a sense, on the probationary path with respect to Sirius. Once we take the 3rd initiation, we become a disciple, and once we become some kind of disciple anyway, and once we take the 5th initiation, we become a true 1st degree initiate in relation to Sirius. So we are definitely on that Sirian path. We don't know whether we will succeed or not, because some people do veer off after the 2nd degree and fail to follow through, but at least this is the type of hierarchical training inspired by Sirius to which we are submitting. How is the Great Bear involved? Well, it is the practical source of the will aspect of the 7 rays for us. The rays are becoming important, and the soul ray is now earnestly contending with the personality ray in specific ways according to the rays, and we can know something about this. Not everybody will at the time of the 1st initiation, but increasingly the science of the rays will help people understand the interplay between the higher and lower pairs of opposites within themselves. Also, the Great Bear is associated with the divine will and with the monadic aspect, and at the 1st initiation that monadic aspect takes up its residency more prominently within the soul, even though we're not aware of that in our brain consciousness. So at least at this point we can consciously begin to work with the 7 rays in a meaningful way. Of course, this this depends on the school of training in which we find ourselves. And right now, not so many people know about the seven rays, but increasingly it will be one of the foundational sciences of the new and accepted esoteric psychology. Also at this point, you know, our seven head centers are becoming strong. And we work with those seven head centers on the way towards the third degree. Well, increasingly towards the third degree. Let's take a look here in a treatise on cosmic fire at page 170 or so. Spiritual man to the third initiation, the seven head centers. And 5 of these centers are probably open by the time we take the first initiation. So the 7 rays via Vulcan are very strongly connected with the developing of these controlling head centers. Now, there may be 21 centers after all. In a sense, I have not made a truly intelligent and determining decision about whether we can differentiate 7 centers within the head from a kind of ajna series of centers which mounts upward toward the crown and may also be a 7. Certain books on the chakras seem to specify that there are these other centers which are not centers within the head at all. So centers above the head, centers in the head, all of that has to be sorted out. We do know at least the location of the other and more normal chakras, or the chakras normally discussed. So the 7 rishis of the Great Bear, who are the sources, the practical sources of the 7 rays for us, they do control these 7 head centers. Here's it looks like a little this looks like a little tangent here, but astrology is very much related to the third ray and the rays, science of the rays, to the second ray and the science of being, to the first ray, where we determine that being is not this and not that, but it is something other than that altogether, or other than this. It's the way of divine refusal. Okay. Here we have the science of the Trinity, in which the 3 are 1 and the 1 are 3. So oneness is manifesting through threeness. This is all about the science of being. We use the way of divine refusal to arrive at oneness. And eventually the idea of the great zero, or the no thing, as pure being. Well, that might have been one of those little interesting discussion tangents we went upon at that point. With respect to the Pleiades, in a sense, we are beginning to leave the mother aspect behind, and the Pleiades represents that mother aspect. From another point of view, the solar angels are related to the Pleiades in terms of the second ray, since the Pleiades are the source of cosmic buddhi, or at least to us, the dragon and the Pleiades are sources of cosmic buddhi. So we are entering another type of relationship with the Pleiades, which is not the usual material relationship. Okay, so those are the 3 great constellations. We could probably talk about other constellations, you know, that are maybe part of the one about whom naught may be said. Orion is, and our own local system of 7 major stars and more, I suppose, is also a center, and maybe a kind of solar plexus center, I think, in the one about whom naught may be said. And there are other constellations as well. The little bear has to be included. So there's a lot of mystery connected with that, and around page 50 that of Esoteric Astrology, that mystery is somewhat explored. I'm not sure whether we can work out yet in a totally definitive manner what are the major constellational centers in our local, one about whom not may be said, but certainly Orion and our local system of 7 stars, and Little Bear, and Sirius maybe on its own, but also maybe as part of our local system of 7, and the Great Bear and the Pleiades, they are all part of this. And well, the constellation of the Centaur, I wonder, we've been thinking about that, in connection with the sacral center. That's a great big science, and deals with things so far beyond our ken, so far beyond what is practical for us to engage in terms of energy, that while it makes for interesting speculation, there's no way that we can confirm these factors. When we talk about Orion as the great hunter, Sirius following Orion, the dog, the loyal dog, following Orion, maybe it means there's a special relationship between our local system of 7 major stars, of our local cosmic logos, in whom our solar logos is the heart center, and the great constellation Orion. In a way, we seem to be following Orion. If we are a solar plexus center, then perhaps we are in a way following after a major heart center in this great being. But there are so many different ways of looking at Orion, and we all have to realize that these great supercosmic logoi have their own series of rays, a personality ray, a soul ray, and a monadic ray. So we can see and understand them under different aspects, just as we can see and understand our local zodiacal constellations under different aspects. The zodiac of constellations has its role as the heart and the head center in this great being, the supercosmic, our local supercosmic logos. But all of that is part of cosmic fire, and I've speculated upon this in my discussions, commentaries on cosmic fire, and also in the Esoteric Astrology book, where I've made minute, if often ignorant commentaries. I hope not too ignorant, but with such a vast subject, some ignorance is obviously bound to show. But I've gone through it page by page, paragraph by paragraph, almost word for word, and some of these things have there been discussed. Okay, well, are there other constellations that we can implicate here? Well, I'll go through this first and then look at the table of decanates. Canis Major, of course, contains Sirius, and it is, as I say, the loyal dog following the hunter. I mean, it is oriented towards the Christ. Of course, in one sense, within Canis Major is what for us is the Christ force, and that is Sirius. But there's Sirius itself is oriented towards something higher, and those fantastic stars in Orion, all of them first magnitude stars, tell us something about that orientation. It is said that the Great Bear, especially the 7 stars, were featured in the head dress of the pharaoh, and Orion in the headdress of the pharaohess. It looks like a combination of the first and second ray. There is this kind of triangle, we might call it, well, it's more than a triangle, but Sirius, Venus, and the Christ, that's one kind of triangle, but we have to remember our own sun is involved in that, and so is Gemini. So we might have Gemini, Sirius, our sun, Venus, and the Christ in a fivefold and very important relationship. We are told we really don't experience the direct energy of Sirius until the third degree, so what we receive is a kind of attenuation or reflection, a kind of a transforming in a downward manner of the Sirian energy. But nevertheless, all initiation is under Sirian influence, so at this seventh petal, where the first initiation is becoming so prominent, it's important. The Southern Cross is involved here. It's connected with Libra, Libra being one of the signs of the Christ, I believe, and the Christ, and the Christ as the Prince of Peace. Hercules, we can say, is found at all the three initiations. Ara, the altar, in Sagittarius, you're laying your lower nature upon the altar and sacrificing it and rendering it submissive and a servant to the higher nature. Sagitta, you're beginning the arrow in Capricorn, interestingly, beginning the Via Dolorosa. Pegasus in Aquarius, you're beginning to fly high and to leave the earth behind. You're aspiring towards the soul and spirit heights. Andromeda, you may be the chained woman, but you are in process of being liberated by Perseus, who is found in Aries, and he's cutting you free, so you're freer from matter. I've said something here. Taurus and Gemini might be related to Sirius and Orion, because Sirius is the hunting dog of Orion. Well, we'll have to take that for what it is worth. What I'll do is I'll turn to these table of decanates, and I think that could be interesting. I've mentioned some of them, and when it comes to that, I'll pass over them relatively quickly. Let's see if there are any other of these constellations which we can relate to the first degree. Well, Cetus, the sea monster, of course, when we come into the period of the first initiation, we are freeing ourselves from the lower tendencies, and there's a lot of purgation that goes on in those lower realms with Pluto and Vulcan penetrating to the depths. So Cetus will no longer have so much power. Cassiopeia is the enthroned queen, and matter will be toppled from the throne eventually as the initiation process proceeds. We're already striking a major blow for the soul against the reign, the third ray reign of matter. Perseus, the hero, in Aries, well, he will free us in 3 steps from the head of the Medusa, and maybe it takes even 4 steps. But we are using the mind increasingly, which is related to the 7th petal. It's the knowledge petal of the sacrificed here, and we're learning how to see our past, represented by the Medusa, through the reflection of the soul-infused mind. Eridanus, the river of souls, in relation to Taurus, well, through the process of reincarnation, which we are becoming more certain of as we reach the first degree in certain schools of thought, we have the opportunity for advancement. Auriga, the charioteer, we are trying to pass rapidly upon our way. Orion bringing enlightenment, in a sense. And we are oriented towards the light and away from the darkness of matter form. Lepus, or Lepus, the hare, will we clean ourselves up? Will we run away from the hound of heaven? That is something that every disciple has to face. excuse me, because there is always an aspect of his or her nature which is running from the demands of the soul. Canis minor, the aspirant, the eager aspirant, we are that at this first initiation. All true aspirants have taken the first initiation, says the Tibetan. Canis major, we're oriented towards Sirius and the greater dog. We're oriented towards the soul. It's playing an increasingly important part in our life. Argo, we are among the aspirants, and we are taking the great hero's journey, accompanied by our fellow aspirants. The Ursa Minor is related to the small group of aspirants and disciples. It's also the manger in a certain sense. And we are becoming oriented towards Ursa Major and the higher will through the 7 rays. This is at the first degree. Hydra, well, or Hydrus, it's pretty much the same as Cetus. We are learning how to overcome that lower water snake. Crater is the cup. Our causal body is being consciously built now, and we are also under Corvus receiving the words of karma, the black crow, the messages of the gods, and we are more aware of how the world of the soul and the world of the gods is intervening into our life. Coma Berenices, many sacrifices are required. We don't make all those sacrifices at first in the 7th petal. Other petals are more important. Bootes, we are in a way conscious of our spiritual harvest. Now, different people understand Bootes and the centaur to be either in this manner, the manner presented, or reversed. When it comes to the centaur, we are learning how to spear our lower nature or the wolf and place it upon the altar. When it comes to Bootes, if it does represent the Christ force, we are harvesting from normal experience that which can be used to increasingly express the Christ force. Southern Cross in Libra, well, it has to do with the orientation towards the Christ force. Lupus, we are the victim in our personality nature. We are the sacrifice. We are the wolf, that highly predatory creature who has to be laid upon the altar of sacrifice. And then eventually we will be crowned. Well, with the corona borealis. Pardon me, this throat, but I'll do the best I can. We are crowned, but not in the highest sense, the shambolic sense, but every initiation is a kind of crowning and involves the head center. The serpens, along with Hydrus and also Cetus, these are all symbols of the lower nature, which we are learning how to control via Ophiuchus, which is the central being here. Again, it is possible to reverse these. Some feel that Ophiuchus, a Christ-like figure, should represent, or is it Hercules? But I think it's usually conventionally understood that Hercules is the figure found in the 3rd decanate. And let's just say, or is it Ophiuchus? Anyway, the serpent handler manages to heal the effects of the lower nature. And so we're getting a grip upon ourselves, we might say, and increasingly this will be so at the 3 initiations, all of them ruled by Scorpio in one sense. Hercules becomes the triumphant disciple at each initiation. And so the triumph here is to a reasonable extent over the physical nature. The lyra, well, you know, it's also related to the seven rays and the seven-stringed lyre of Apollo. And we're becoming more aware of the influence of these seven energies. It's also the solar angels falling from above and helping with the individualization process, making it possible, really, at the dawn of the fourth kingdom on our particular planet. So certainly we are becoming aware of the descending solar angelic energy. It makes us want to sacrifice that which is lower in our nature and lay it upon the altar of sacrifice, whereby it is transmuted and will eventually become a subsidiary quality of the soul. Draco is such a huge constellation. It is the source of cosmic Buddhi. Interesting that the dragon has not only the seventh ray connected with it and all of the magical dragon-like processes, which are so popular now that the seventh ray is coming in, but is connected with the second ray of wisdom and with the whole idea of dragons of wisdom. And we're on our way towards that in the initiation process, but not so strongly just yet. Sagitta, the arrow of pain, is accompanying us now as we begin to tread the path which will make us a member of the fellowship of Christ's sufferings. Delphinus, are we freeing ourselves from the water, and can we play in the lower levels of our personality? Can we rise into the air towards the sun? It's starting. Aquila the eagle, each initiation is a type of triumph, but really at the third initiation, Aquila is most important. Cygnus is the swan outside of time and space. It is a great constellation, and it represents all that is transcendent. I think perhaps in its full nature not yet, but Pegasus the winged horse is related very much also to the lesser dog, Procyon. Its eagerness to go ahead, and here the eagerness to fly high and to fly towards the sun. The sense of liberation starting, not yet with us entirely. Pisces, Ostrinus, it is a redemptive constellation, the southern fish found at the base of the river, Eridanus, the river of souls. It is the Redeemer, and we are subject to the Redeemer. The band, well, we're learning in what ways we are bound, and how soul and personality have been bound to each other, and how the soul has been especially bound to the personality. But this band in Pisces represents the opportunity to free the soul from its bondage to the personality and turn the tables entirely and make the personality the subject which is bound to the soul. I mentioned Andromeda. We are becoming increasingly unchained. The hero has not entirely freed us. It's a sequential process. And Cepheus the king, not yet. Not yet. Not yet is he the initiator. At the third initiation, Sanat Kumara, who we can consider Cepheus the king, will be considered the initiator. Okay, so that's a run through the constellations which can be considered. Okay. All right, this is where we are. So it's not petal 7 repaired. No. It is something else. Okay. So we have run through the extra zodiacal constellation. All of these are ambient energies They are stellar energies, and even beyond stellar, they are superstellar in a way, but they do, as any sidereal astrologer can tell us, they do have an effect upon man. So let's say that every Aries person has to deal with this Cetus, the sea monster, the great unconscious elemental forces that wants to swallow the nascent soul, and has to deal with the fact that matter sits enthroned as the queen, Cassiopeia, and she has to be dethroned, in a sense. Matter can no longer prevail, and that there is the hero in every Aries type. I'm so interested, Joseph Campbell, that he wrote about the hero's journey and the hero with 1,000 faces. He was an Aries, and interestingly enough, although he was a strong academic and led his life in the academic sphere, he developed this whole idea of the hero impulse. So within every Aries type is the archetype of the hero. These are archetypes. Archetypes are embodiments of cosmic and systemic energies, presented often in pictorial form and in relation to a story or a great story, a myth, and they tell us a way of living in the world, a way of being. They describe for us how we might carry forward the pattern that they represent in the lower worlds, and thus achieve some degree of triumph represented by the archetype. All right. Now, we have lots to do. Number 37. The synthesizing planet most associated with his sacrifice tier, well, it would be Uranus, although in a sense Saturn is in a way more material, although Uranus is a seventh-ray planet. And Saturn has a strong connection with sacrifice. Really, they all do. All three can show up in three different ways in three different tiers, but when we're considering the nature of this tier, it is most associated with the first ray rather than the third, and the monadic ray of Uranus is, the Tibetan seems to be telling us on page 420 of Esoteric Psychology 1, it is the first ray. So we are being awakened through Uranus, awakened through initiation. We are being awakened also that our brother is our equal. We might say there in Libra, and a fellow spirit in the Great Brotherhood in relation to Aquarius. Well, and we're being awakened to our true self. Uranus has 4 relations. It is the hierarchical ruler of Aquarius. It's the veiled hierarchical ruler of Leo. It is the esoteric ruler of Libra, equality, and it is the ordinary ruler, orthodox ruler, exoteric ruler of Aquarius. So in all those respects, it is active here. But let's just say that although the Uranian rod of initiation is not yet applied until the 9th petal, and the Neptunian rod of the Bodhisattva is being applied at these petals, Uranus, in terms of the 3 planets, is most associated with the kind of liberation which comes through sacrifice. And that is the key, that we must bind ourselves in order to be free. Spiritually bind ourselves in order to be free. We have the Shiva, the Vishnu, and the Brahma. They're all involved, of course, at every, in some way, muted or more emergent at every tier. But Shiva is involved here It's the liberating effect. Uranus is Shiva. So we could say that sacrifice restores us to conformity with our heavenly prototype or archetype. I'll write it down. Conformity to our heavenly prototype or archetype. And Uranus is that. Uranus is the heavenly prototype or archetype. Through sacrifice, we unbind ourselves to the lesser patterns which have conditioned us and which prevent us from truly conforming to archetypal living. Uranus is associated with being, we might say, and we eventually sacrifice everything in order to be pure being, to see pure being. We sacrifice everything except pure being. Pure being being indestructible, it cannot be sacrificed because it simply is. It is isness. But in a way, it is isness with the habit of bestowing itself upon all of its emanations which have forgotten who and what they are. It's kind of interesting that some people associate Neptune with Shiva, and one can understand that because of the great destructive power of Neptune, sort of calling in the pralaya, and Shiva carries the trident, which is, of course, Neptune's symbol. There's a lot of combinations and permutations that we can enter into here. There is the sense in which every 3 is actually a 9. So every aspect has the other 2 aspects subsidiary to it as well. That is expressed in the words that Brahma and Vishnu are in Shiva, Vishnu and Shiva are in Brahma, and Brahma and Shiva are in Vishnu. So the 3 is the 9, and the 9 is the number, actually, which represents the cycles of the third ray. So in this sacrifice petal, we are beginning to awaken, and by the time we reach petal number 9, which is in one sense an Aries petal, we have Uranus, the hierarchical ruler of Aries, awakening us to the meaning of pure being, which is achieved in a foundational sense at the 3rd degree, with which Aries and Uranus are both associated. Well, so Uranus in one sense is very strong here, but I've also illustrated, I think, how Saturn, the planet of privation and of sacrifice, must be active at the sacrifice petals, and so must Neptune, which is the planet of the 2nd ray fundamentally, and brings in the soul aspect and loosens, dissolves our bonds from all material identifications. Okay, now, what division of the synthesizing planetary triplicity is most associated with this petal? Uranus sub Saturn, because Saturn is always associated with knowledge because of its 3rd ray monad, so this is the sub-knowledge petal of the general sacrifice tier. Uranus is involved here too with reversing the wheel. Electric fire is beginning to come in the petals of sacrifice, very muted and quite latent for the first 2 petals, but actually beginning to demonstrate more strongly in the 9th petal associated with the 3rd initiation. Right, so all the inner tier, not the innermost, but the inner tier, can be connected with Saturn. Neptune is the Christ who appears at the first initiation. Neptune, Vishnu, Christ. There's an equivalency, so all 3 are involved. We must fulfill the law under Libra at this petal, and also under Saturn. We must meet the Christ, who is Neptune, and start on the path in the new kingdom, which is Uranus. So all three will meet here. Interestingly enough, Uranus and Saturn have a strong connection with Libra, which is perhaps the paramount sign found in relation to this seventh petal. Okay, well, you know, the temptation to expand further. Now we're going to deal with number 39, the neighboring planets. With these neighboring, and I think we should explain, probably have, neighboring the Earth, really. So the neighboring planet, or planets most associated with this petal, it is Mercury. Mercury is associated more with the previous solar system even than with the present solar system, with which Venus is most associated. So Mercury is associated with the color yellow. The sacrifice is yellow. Sacrifice has a lot to do with reconciling the pairs of opposites and bringing the lower of the pair into harmony with the higher. Mercury, sacrifice, and yellow. It restores sight to the blind. Well, that's what initiation is all about. From the time of the first initiation on, Mercury leads into the mysteries. And the mysteries, in a way, begin here at the first initiation. It leads us to greater sight. Now, we could say that the entire tier, in a way, is connected with Mercury, because yellow is found in each one of the petals. And, well, we have used the planets Mars, Venus, and Mercury. They are the neighboring planets, neighboring the Earth, we might say. And we also have a place, of course, for Venus in relation to this petal, because the angel of the presence, the solar angel, is coming into very definite rapport, not perfect rapport, but definite rapport with the aspiring personality. But we'll save that more archetypally for the next petal. So this will be from number 40 here, Mercury sub-Mars. Sub-Mars. Aspiration to propagate the knowledge of the spirit, to utilize the knowledge of the spirit. Mars is a fairly material planet to energetically apply with full aspiration the knowledge that we have been gaining. All knowledge gained here is used for service purposes. So we justify our aspiration, and we have the energy that is often found at the time of the first initiation, when the Martian sacral center is reoriented towards the throat. In a way, it's not just Uranus towards Saturn at the throat center, it's Mars towards Saturn at the throat center, and even Mars towards Uranus, because Uranus eventually will be ruling that throat center via the seventh ray at the first initiation, or will provide a substantial stream of energy controlling that throat center. So we have, in a way, the reorientation of Mars. It becomes truly aspirational and magnetized by Venus-Mercury. In a way, the soul is Venus-Mercury, or Mercury-Venus, the divine hermaphrodite. So we'll call it Mercury sub-Mars, the next petal Mercury sub-Venus, and the next petal Mercury sub-Mercury. All right, now let's go to number 41. Is there a sun-moon polarity most associated with this petal? Well, the sun. The sun. We're leaving the lunar nature behind. As it says in Rule 5 for aspirants, found in Initiation Human and Solar, and also in the rays and the initiations, the solar angel is becoming the sole luminary in the microcosmic sky. Let the how's it go? Let the applicant Let's look at it. I always have it memorized, but sometimes a little bit of a lapse in the memory. But right here, let's say page 20 or so, pretty close, page 19. Let the disciple. No, it's number 5. Excuse me, it's close. It was right. Let the applicant see to it that the solar angel dims the light of the lunar angels, remaining the sole luminary in the microcosmic sky. Even the word soul is a play upon words. S-O-L-E and S-O-U-L, very much the same. And speaking then, and hinting at the idea that there's a soul, or one soul. So the solar angel is dimming the light of the lunar angels here at the first degree, especially the first lunar angel associated with the etheric physical body, and is becoming the sole luminary in the microcosmic sky. What is the microcosmic sky, really? We can call it our sphere of personality awareness, our sphere of consciousness, when we are within our within the personality. When we as a soul, an extension of consciousness within the personality, are becoming aware of something greater. This is the reaching of the personal microcosm towards something larger. It's still the microcosm, of course. As long as we are a individual emanation, we are a microcosm. So whatever the monadic consciousness may be, it is the microcosm. But this monad in extension is so far immersed in the personality that we're used to having these lunar vehicles, or these lunar objects, as luminaries in our microcosmic sky. We have to subdue that lunar influence, and the sun, or the soul, becomes for the moment the sole luminary in the microcosmic sky. And then we can even consider the monad as a higher type of sun. Interestingly, that the name for India is Chandra, which means the moon. And does it suggest Indians, or those on the Indian continent coming in from the moon chain? Well, so many of them right now have not come in from the moon chain, but are earth chain monads and have a connection with Jupiter and Venus, actually. Okay, let's take a look at this. St. Paul was a Scorpio. The moon is falling in Scorpio, and he was always, in a way, battling between the Christ force and the lunar force. The body of death was the lunar force, and the Christ force was the victorious Christ in him that had to win this particular battle. He certainly had a strong element of struggle in his nature, and maybe the fact that he was I believe, a first-ray monad intensified this struggle. And certainly Scorpio was a big part of that. Really, for him, the first initiation was not an issue, but still there was some remnant of conquering the physical body, it seemed. But the second and third, and maybe even the fourth initiations, were for him the issues. He may have been one of those who moved from the second to the third, and thence to the fourth at the close of his life. Okay. So, from the time we have entered the fifth petal, there's a certain sun-moon polarity fighting it out in the fifth petal, but from that time on, the sun is ascending. And even though there's a strong lunar component to the sixth petal, because the moon is the esoteric ruler of Virgo, still the sun is gaining the upper hand. And each one of us could, look at our lives and say, well, in this ongoing struggling polarity in the life of man, the battle between the sun and the moon, how is it going for us? Are we attracted to the lunar life and attempting to fulfill it, or is the sun really, the sun representing the soul and the spirit, is the sun really gaining ascendancy in our life? There's all kinds of ways to evaluate ourselves and how we're doing on the path and what remains to be done. We certainly have all of this idea of self-conquest, which has to be lived through. The Buddha would have us overcome ourselves, our lower selves, as one who had conquered 1,000 armies. The Buddha would have us overcome our lower selves, and Christianity would, and I think the internal meaning of jihad is the same, to really overcome the inner self. It's been externalized, of course, by those with lesser understanding of the inner psychological process. So everything is extroverted, and the higher aspect of man is not understood. But all of that is cleared up in due course with time. Okay, so the sun-moon polarity, we are definitely moving towards, we are involved with the sun ascending at the first initiation and continuing to ascend until it reaches the top of the mountain, we might say, at the third initiation. And then it drops to becoming, in a way, a midnight sun at the fourth initiation. The sun at midnight, I think, has a strong connection. Well, the sun at midnight has an interesting connection with all initiations, and maybe the midnight hour is very appropriate for the moment of initiation, no matter what the initiation might be. But certainly the submerged sun at midnight seems to be associated with the fourth, what has happened to the inner God, to the higher God, to the God upon which we depended so much. What has happened to the solar angel becomes in a way invisible because it has winged its way back to the heart of the sun. But after the crucifixion at the midnight hour, we might say, comes the resurrection at dawn, which is mastership. A kind of resurrection. There's also the seventh initiation type of resurrection, which is a higher thing altogether. Okay, number 42, planets which may be implicated and the reasons for this implication. Well, some of this I have discussed, but let's focus specifically upon the planets, and it looks like I've included just every one. Have I included the moon? Well, not really, and really it's not a planet either. Okay. Well, Vulcan. The will of the soul is coming in. We're getting a grip upon the physical nature which Vulcan represents. The head centers are becoming more powerful. The head center is power, and it's ruled for the disciple by Vulcan, crown center ruled by Vulcan. And we are on our way to overcoming the kinds of desires which will be definitely conquered by the time we reach the second initiation, in which Vulcan again will show up. So through Vulcan we slowly overcome desire, and the soul establishes its control over the personality, as was indicated in a treatise on cosmic fire. Yes, I think around 822, I think so. But let's just go there again just for a moment. Okay, let's try that. And 823 even. Yeah, and thus intelligently to dominate the entire threefold lower man. Vulcan, it plays a great role in this domination of the threefold lower man by the will of the ego or soul, higher ego. Mercury, well, we're sharing our knowledge and we're continuing to learn. The will to sacrifice through knowledge on the mental plane. and thus intelligently to dominate the entire threefold lower man. So we see there's lots of Mercury in this statement, and interestingly, it's a Mercury sub-Mars kind of petal, and Mars itself is associated with the five senses and with the concrete mind. So the accumulations of the concrete mind also are here used in a sacrificial manner under the guidance of Mercury, which can begin to become intuitive. When we're at the first initiation, we're associated with the siddhi on the third sub-level of the mental plane. So maybe we're beginning to a bit read the presentation of the senses as if it were a symbol, which means we're engaged in spiritual reading and spiritual discernment. We are on the path of discipleship. The path of discipleship is ruled by Mercury and Saturn. Some have said that it's really the path of accepted discipleship, which is specifically ruled by Mercury and Saturn. Maybe the path of probationary discipleship is more emotional. And is ruled by the second and fourth rays. But then again, of course, Mercury is related directly to the fourth ray. But I suppose we can say, in an important sense, the path of discipleship does begin here at the first initiation, and Mercury and Saturn would come in strongly, the third and the fifth rays. So we're sacrificing through knowledge here under the Mercurian color yellow, and we are dialoguing with, we are conversing with the soul. We're getting an idea of that higher stream of light which comes from the soul. It's a very Geminian Mercury process. Here's a kind of a interesting connection. The yellow connected with the previous solar system could be the fourth ray, but maybe represents the third ray in that system, and it may be a bridge. The fourth ray is a bridge, and we're interested here in the Jewish group coming from the previous solar system. They are the nomads, of course, where they are, not necessarily in Jewish bodies at this time, but they came from the previous solar system, and they are represented, or at least they were persecuted under a yellow Star of David. So this connects them both with the fourth ray and the third ray. Their personality is on the third ray, but I've often wondered whether the monadic ray of the Jewish group is not the fourth ray, and thus connected with the color yellow. So humanity is changing now from previous solar system methods into present solar system methods, and Mercury is a bridging planet here. It's connected both with the previous solar system and the present solar system, and it is leading us into the mysteries which are characteristic of the present solar system. It's restoring sight to the blind, and this is certainly happening at that first great revelation, which we call the first initiation, or the birth of the Christ in the heart. Okay, well, that's enough about Mercury and, of course, its connection to the third ray, which is strongly connected with this petal having to do with knowledge. Mercury has so many different levels at which it operates. It does operate concretely in the realm of ordinary concrete knowledge, but it operates in terms of knowledge of the soul and knowledge of the abstract realms as well. And it operates in relation to intuition and also into a kind of blinding revelation of the law on the atomic plane. Mercury and Saturn, again, in that sense, with Saturn being the ruler of the atomic plane and representing the law. Now, what about Venus in relation to petal number 7? Well, Venus is gradually overcoming Mars. Mars is the threefold personality united, often in an aggressive stance against the soul, which is attempting to dominate. But Mars is about selfishness, and Venus is about altruism, at least archetypally. Venus is more advanced than Mars, so the selfish instincts come in under Mars. It is a planet of altruism, where we begin to care for the other, to whom we are magnetically related in soul. Venus is the symbol of the solar angel, and the whole solar angelic host is deeply connected with the Venus vibration. Venus is a planet of solar fire, and also, in its fifth ray sense, a planet of knowledge. So Venus is really part of the entire higher mental plane. So when we are certainly communing with the higher mental plane, when we are communing with the higher ego, the angel of the presence, the solar angel. So the kind of knowledge which we are particularly interested in relation to Venus is the knowledge of the soul. And here at the first initiation, we are gaining that type of knowledge. We understand from the sequence of words excuse me, associated with the 5 initiations, the very first word is know. Know what? Well, know something about the soul. Know, express, reveal, destroy, resurrect. So some type of deeper knowledge of the soul is coming in with this idea of knowing, which is what Venus can give us, a more intimate knowledge of the soul. Now, Venus rules Libra, and this is strongly a Libran petal, if we begin at the first petal with Aries, and go either clockwise or counterclockwise. And Venus also rules the 5th creative hierarchy of solar angels, which is becoming engaged with the man at this point. The particular solar angel, which has the man under supervision, is now interacting with him in a very strong way under Gemini, which Venus also rules, in a sense. And Capricorn, too, hierarchically. The first initiation under Venus, under Capricorn, rather, has an implied Venus operating with that process. So when the first initiation comes, Venus representing the soul, the solar angel, the 5th creative hierarchy, is definitely involved, and that's coming in at this 7th petal. We can call the Christ Neptune. He is called Neptune Vishnu, but he's also called Venus, the morning star, or Lucifer, the morning star. So Venus is the Christ, in a sense. Venus is love and wisdom, which we are encountering in fuller measure here in the Hall of Wisdom, which we have been entering now, and have now entered for sure on the fixed cross. Someone talked about the pipes of Pan. Interestingly enough, there are 5. I think it's a pentatonic scale, and not the full 7 notes that we find in our current octave. Pan is a son of Mercury. Mercury involved with this petal. So, let's see, hearing and seeing. Hearing the note so as not to be bewildered. 2 pipes in the pipes of Pan. Well, this is a sort of an obscure discussion, and I'm not sure exactly where it leads, but of course the contrast between the 5 and 7 is very important. The 7 has to do with the pentatonic scale and the regime of matter form, and the 3rd ray. And the 7-fold scale has to do with the 7 rays and the 2nd ray system, and the way, it's the way we divide the scale at this time. So we are moving, in a sense, from the non-sacred 5 into the more sacred 7 at this 7th petal. We are, in a way, beginning to leave Brahma behind, the emphasis upon the 3rd aspect. We're leaving that behind. Okay, well, we've done Vulcan, Mercury, Venus, in relation to this 7th petal. What about the Earth? Well, it's the esoteric ruler of Sagittarius, Sagittarius being one of those elemental signs, fire element, that can be considered as beginning this series of sacrifice petals, certainly ruling the first initiation and the second. Our motive here is service, and the service is related to the earth. Earth is considered to be the field of service where we direct the various energies with which we may have come in contact. This petal has a strongly third ray nature, and the earth gives a lot of the third ray. Of course, on the earth there is the struggle between the second and third ray, the second ray soul of earth and its third ray personality. Excuse me. And thus it is as well in this seventh petal, where the third aspect is gradually being overcome by the second aspect through the initiation process. Earth represents the personality, and Venus is the redeemer. So, as we say here, we're making our earth sacred. And we must be down to earth to take initiation. We need a body, we need a brain. Earth is that body and brain. And so we are embodying the Christ principle in matter form, which the earth here represents. I think that's the basic idea there. We have to be practical. Initiation is a practical process, and it means that the world of the soul actually has come down to earth and anchored itself on earth. We do need a physical body and brain for that to occur. Initiation 5, we learn, interestingly, can be taken without a physical body and brain, may be taken elsewhere, and certainly that may be true of higher initiations. But as we are really seeking to externalize the hierarchy and manifest the divine plan through the matter and formal tendencies remaining from the previous solar system, it is good and often necessary that this be embodied in the densest substance, that our higher potentials be embodied in the densest substance, represented in part by the earth, although the earth has a strong etheric representation as well. I wonder if I can get that in here. Maybe not. Maybe not. Well, let's see. If we did this, and one more, and that would be 6. The strong etheric representation of the earth. Earth is associated not only with the dense physical body, but with the etheric body. And here we are dealing much with the etheric body at this first initiation in this 7th petal. The relationship between 3 and 7 is very strong. Well, we could, expand upon and dilate this, but let's just say that we have to enter practical service, the necessity. Necessity of entering practical service at the first initiation. Now we come to Mars, a non-sacred planet, not as sacred as the Earth, not yet, but there's still plenty of aspiration here in the first degree, and every initiate of whatever degree fights the good fight, fighting for higher values. And maybe we begin to learn under Mars, can we internalize Mars and not just direct it outward? Can we internalize Mars and not just direct it towards an outer enemy? The enemy is within. And if we're really involved in the spiritual struggle, we will recognize this. Mars also indicates here, since it rules that hierarchy called the lunar lords, the creative hierarchy, the reorientation of the lunar lords through aspiration. Now, in a way, this has been going on ever since work in later Petal 5 and work in Petal 6, but here it has to be taken in all seriousness. We become the true aspirant at the first initiation. So, becoming the true aspirant, at the first initiation. And in another way, let's just say, also, we have to struggle with the entire personality, especially through ESPC, especially through its lowest vehicle, which is always, well, represented by Mars. Mars rules the dense physical body. Really, every vehicle within the personality is ruled in some way by Mars and also in some way by the moon. But here, you know, the sacral center is very important, and we are overcoming the lowest type of tendencies. So here, at the first degree, here, that's not what I want. So here at the first degree, we are overcoming the lowest tendencies of the personality. Some form of domination of an aspect of the personality. So Mars is important in terms of its disciplining. Now, all of us have this issue of disciplining the lower man, and especially that very first type of discipline, physical discipline, is so important in our modern day and age. We have the sacral center almost overstimulated because of the coming in of Uranian powers in the age of Aquarius, and the seventh ray, which is connected via Uranus to the sacral center. And we see things are, you know, in many ways getting out of control in a licentious manner. So we have to find ways to bring all of this under rhythmic control according to a higher purpose. Mars is not that type of tendency. There's not a lot of rhythm in Mars, but there's a lot of energy. And if we can bring this energy under rhythmic control, maybe using Uranus, using Saturn, we can channel it through higher aspiration towards real accomplishment. So that's how we consider Mars at the seventh petal. Now, what would it mean? You know, if you know you're involved in seventh petal processes, and you look at your Mars and how it's operating in your life, you have to bring it under a certain type of discipline, and according to the nature of the sign and the house and the aspects, so the type of discipline which you must assert will be represented or will be indicated. What about Jupiter? Well, Jupiter is the great benefic, and it is for the benefit of humanity. We do have Sagittarius strongly associated with this petal, and Jupiter is the ruler there, and a certain type of giving begins, let's just say. The planet of philanthropy, you know, and we begin to experience the Jupiterian compassion and inclusiveness, not in any full measure yet, because it's only the first degree, but these things are growing in us. And, you know, the the first initiation brings in the regime of the great second ray. Christ is a representative of the second ray, and he is the initiator at the first two initiations. So it's the whole regime of the soul, which is generically under the second ray, which is being brought into expression. It's the great Jupiter, in a sense, is the great second ray planet of our solar system. Neptune, far more esoterically, okay, but Jupiter normally. So we think of the generosity of the hierarchy in the initiation process, this giving, this bestowing, this offering of opportunity, and we, through service, really begin to offer opportunity. We are, I'm so sorry, we are pouring forth, becoming generous. Jupiter, bringing all things together, is a planet of group consciousness, including the many as if they were the one. It represents the heart center, which is activated at the first initiation. And we're going beyond the small I. We're becoming more inclusive. We're not simply the I am. We're beginning to understand a little bit about the I am that. Jupiter, archetypally, also represents the soul. It's certainly involved in the expansiveness of the causal body. So we're starting to give in a way that is not hoping for things in return. Well, in Petal 6, we still hoped for things in return when we were working there, organizing and vitalizing. And by the time we've reached Petal 8, we do not hope for anything in return. And so I would say that Petal 7 is a transition here. Consciousness is expanding as the initiatory regime begins. And we're having that attitude that this is not just all about us as a little personal ego. There's a much bigger picture here, and through the rites of initiation we are coming in touch with this greater vision of the truth, which Jupiter confers and which naturally affects our behavior and increases our will to dominate the threefold lower man, and not just to show we can do it, but so that we can make sure that the forces of the lower threefold man do not interfere anymore with the higher energies, which we can begin accessing from a greater and larger world that Jupiter represents. Well, there's lots of ways that Jupiter can be involved there. It is connected with higher mind and also with the ability to understand from the abstract mental point of view. It's a philosophical planet, looking at all things in a bigger way. And as we learn to sacrifice, the bigger picture starts to enter our life. And people do what they do because of the philosophy of life that they have. They think life is a certain thing and they operate accordingly. And when our vision of life, our conception of life changes, our conception of the process in which we are involved, then our actions change as well. So I think that Jupiter has a strong effect. I think, what we would do astrologically, we would say, well, look, I know I'm working on the first initiation, let us say. I'm submitting my lower self, or I'm driving my lower self into strenuous and abnormal efforts. I'm on the path of probation. The petal number 7 is showing signs of opening here. I'm on the verge of taking the first initiation. How can I use, in a conscious way, each one of my planets deliberately, consciously, not just waiting for what's going to happen to me or when a certain planet comes into strong aspect, but actually using the planet deliberately to accomplish the tasks associated with this next area of achievement, which is indicated by the petal process that I am passing through. There's so many different ways of, you might not know anything about the Egoic Lotus, and you might just know a little bit about initiations and still be able to accomplish the same thing. But the richness of the energies and forces involved are indicated in the Egoic Lotus, and so we get a much more articulated view of what is actually happening during this phase, developmental phase. And I guess, from the study of the Egoic Lotus, in this way people should gain a more realistic picture of where they stand in the discipleship and probationary initiation process. It's so easy to exaggerate where one is, but when DK says that the beginner is always more self-consciously conceited than the more experienced disciple. But when we begin to see what the requirements really are, we can gain a better understanding of what is required of us and where we actually stand, that realistic view of where we actually stand and what we can actually do. These are important things and will save us from the glamour, the inflations, the wrong thinking that so many of us disciples may find ourselves involved in if we're not careful. Now, let's go on and see, is Saturn related to the seventh petal? Well, I think in lots of ways. Looks like it. So this Saturn is one of the major planets ruling the path of discipleship, which we are beginning in earnest as we're entering the spiritual kingdom of God. And we are learning detachment from the elemental life, and Saturn provides us with that as well, the discipline which leads to achieved detachment. Saturn is also the law, and we are sacrificing all knowledge we have accumulated, we are told, under the law. We are operating lawfully and not just according to the impulses of the astral body. We are aware of what the law of karma is, more so here at the seventh petal, such a Libran petal. And we are trying to give appropriately and proportionately of our accumulations according to the laws of which we are now aware, including a growing knowledge of the laws of the soul. So Saturn is the planet of rules, and we are presented with rules to be obeyed. I would say that the first degree initiate is very cautious in that respect, very rule conscious. And perhaps we can begin to apply in some measure those 14 rules for initiation as they apply to the individual candidate, not the group rules necessarily. As I said, the law of rebirth is becoming, well, you know, in the way that Cancer is related to this petal, we begin to work consciously with the law of rebirth. Now, it depends on whether we're schooled in esotericism, in occultism, or we are maybe passing through the first initiation without that type of knowledge. But if we do, we begin to consciously work with the law of rebirth, and we understand it in relation to the law of karma, which is very Saturnian. So our actions and reactions, they become very important considerations in this very Libran petal, which is at once so Saturnian, because Libra is really, strangely, the most Saturnian of all the signs. It's doubly ruled by Saturn. So law is the adjustment of matter to spirit, and you give here so as to make possible the right adjustment of matter to spirit. And we're giving according to the law of spirit, but even, but maybe even more, you know, the law of the soul. But more at first, the law of the soul. So the soul we begin to understand as a karmic agent. Indeed it is. It's a, in a way, a lesser lord of karma. So what we have here is intelligent giving of all we have accumulated, hence Saturn, intelligence, and the third ray. And we can associate Saturn with the general laws of the soul. Now, each one of the planets has an association with one of the laws particularly, and you know, it's hard to tell exactly which one. There's different ways to think about it, but certainly the law of sacrifice is strongly related to Saturn. So is the law of service. Excuse me. And so is the law of group progress, ruled by Capricorn, interestingly, and maybe even the law of repulse. So there are ways to associate a number of the planets with the different laws of the soul. But in general, Saturn is law, and we are entering under the laws of the soul, the first of which is sacrifice, making a choice about what is lesser and what is greater, and learning how to relinquish the lesser for the greater. So Saturn, it's all about, we're entering the fixed cross here in earnest. It's all about that willingness to stay on the fixed cross and not grasp, for yourself. Saturn and Sanat and sacrifice, they all go together. Sanat Kumara, the great lord who limits himself for the sake of others. And when we look at Saturn in a high mode of expression, it can be described in this way: self-limitation for the sake of others in the group. So no initiate is going to become an initiate without that type of voluntary self-restriction, at least restriction of the lower part of his nature. No initiate achieves without sacrifice. So what laws are involved here? Laws of the soul, the law of karma, the law of intelligent giving, and in this Libran petal, right human relations, the golden rule, these are applied under the law, and they are promoted. The whole idea of we'll call it the law of altruism, where we're considering the other as equal to ourselves, and maybe later even as more important. Saturn is what is right and what is correct, and we're learning here at the first initiation and continuing to learn after that to square ourselves, our behavior, our thoughts, our words, with the law and with the rules and with the plan. All of those are ruled by Saturn: law, rules, and plan. The divine plan is in a way atmic in origin, and the atmic plane is ruled by Saturn. So Saturn, in a way, the cold planet, it helps us learn to be impersonal over the Martian heat of personalism. So we're really coming in touch now with law and rule at this seventh petal. And here there is the description of discriminative giving as appropriate. You can see how Saturnian that is. And it's the discipline of service and not just random acts of service which are unintelligently motivated by the feeling nature. We're being trained. The meek are inheriting the earth. Alice Bailey said the word meek means to be trained. So it's the trained effect of Saturn here, and we're learning to, this is so interesting, we're learning how to restrain ourselves and retrain ourselves. Restrain and retrain. The lower elemental nature is restrained under the law, under Saturn, under right proportion, under Libra, and new patterns are being devised which are correlated with the laws of the soul, and hence we are retraining ourselves in new modes of thought, word, and deed. With the first initiation, we strike a major blow against comfort, and of course a lot of these physical disciplines are very uncomfortable to the physical body. Sex, money, and comfort. Well, Saturn can work as a restraint of sex, appropriate use, appropriately timed, the right planned use of money. Saturn is very connected with money, and kind of making sure that comfort, which is acquiescing to the demands of the lower self, does not get the upper hand. So I think we can see there was quite a bit of Saturn involved in this petal, in its relationship to Libra and its relationship to the third aspect, and in general to the disciplines of initiation. The Tibetan has told us that as we progress, our life becomes more outwardly bound and more inwardly free. Well, speaking of the freedom, we come to Uranus, but we cannot really reach Uranus unless we rise upon the shoulders of Saturn. So Uranus being the planet of revolution, well, initiation is a revolution. It's really the result of the evolution of the turning of the wheel in a different direction. We're now progressing upon the wheel of consciousness. We have not yet finished with the wheel of form, and the rending strife between the two makes the life of the aspirant disciple very conflicted. We're dealing with the sacral center in a new way, I think, under Uranus. I think it has some lower connection to a lot of perversions which are rampant today under the misinterpreted Aquarian-Uranian impulse, but at the same time we are dealing with the reorientation of the sacral center towards the throat, and with a new type of creativity which can come in at the first degree when the throat center becomes at least partially ruled by the seventh ray, which would implicate Uranus necessarily. So we're dealing with creation and procreation, but it's procreation and creation, both in line with the soul's purpose and not just simply random satisfaction because you only live once and you have to grab everything you can get. You know, once reincarnation comes into understanding by a majority of human beings, they will regulate their life. There's Regulus for Leo in the first degree in a new way. So we're beginning the whole process of transmutation, changing the quality of matter under Uranus, and we're not only entering a new, well, our new method of creativity can be called recreation. Electric fire is coming in, but not so noticeably, at least on the soul level, it is noticeable. But we're entering the new kingdom. Everything new is Uranian. There will be a new heaven and new earth. The seventh ray brings heaven to earth, thus creating the new earth. In terms of the new heaven, well, that's a creation on still a higher plane. When we go to the plane of archetypes, which, well, it's ultimately the logoic plane, which is Uranian, but also the monadic plane, we have thoughts which are in the mind of God, and to us it seems new. But we don't need to recreate there. We simply need to express what is there found. So we are being welcomed into the spiritual kingdom, the kingdom of souls, the fifth kingdom, the fixed cross, all that. A new kind of kingdom with new possibilities, and the possibility of remaking ourselves in line with the higher archetypes, and to change the nature of our creative life so it isn't motivated by personalism and by our earthly experience and by our solar plexus, but is motivated from meditative contact with the heavens. The heavenly one is Uranus. So this is contact with the heavenly one to bring forward a new type of creativity. And, you know, it's one of the rulers of Libra, esoteric ruler, and important in terms of turning things in a new direction or speeding onward the reversing wheel until it becomes the wheel which is truly reversed, which is probably occurring after the midway point between the second and third initiation. Neptune at this seventh petal, well, Neptune is the Christ. And the Christ is who we encounter at the first degree. And this is giving us the possibility of being highly motivated by the divine idealism of the soul. Mysticism is still prominent at the first degree. Not yet are we truly the occultists, but I suppose it depends very much on the ray. So we are beginning that movement from Neptune to Uranus to transform the mystic into the what I would say, spiritually knowledgeable person, the occultist. Neptune is the planet of deep sacrifice, of letting go. You know, it's even the idea of relaxation, which is so Neptunian, is about letting go of our usual personality grip upon our elementals and allowing a higher energy to flow through. So if the hands are to open and give, it's often a Neptunian gesture. The Saturnian hand is sometimes very clenched. You know, it's kind of interesting. People with strong Saturn in their palmistry and their chirognomy, their hands sometimes grasp, you know. And with Neptune, there's a more relaxed, flowing through. So we're not trying to hold on for our personal self. We're learning the meaning of relinquishment, which is one of the major Neptunian themes. The Venus relations are very strong there, and Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. Both are connected with the rose. Neptune is connected with the solar angels and their sacrificial attitude. Neptune is the custodian of the solar flames, and Venus represents these solar flames or solar angels. So the relationship with the solar angels is coming in here much stronger, and it will increase through the entire initiatory process. I think a strong Neptune can be an indication that something important is happening in terms of initiation, and it, even more so at the second degree, because it represents the connection with the heart of the sun. Neptune is definitely a solar fire planet, and as we undergo the first initiation, the avenue for love to flow into the Neptunian emotional nature is increasingly open, and maybe by the time we reach the second initiation, the door to love will really be there, and the astral nature will carry that vibration of love. There's so much work to be done between the first and second initiation. I mean, so you know, it's really proportionally a period 10 times longer. Well, you see how I arrive at that. The Christ archetypally lived to be 33, and from the birth to the baptism, the Neptunian baptism, that was a first initiation period of 30 years, and so with each of the successive initiations, we have kind of a kind of a proportion of 30 to 1, 30 to 1, 30 to 1. Or even 30 to 3, which is a 10 to 1 proportion. Now, those are not exact numbers, but they are indications of this very long process which occurs between the first and second degree. And many people, I think, who think they are beyond this 30-year process are maybe just at the end of it, you know, and have not really broken in to the second degree, at which point one enters the stream. Of course, the stream again is Neptune, the water. So it's a very important indicator at this first initiation petal, where the attitudes of the soul are being adopted, and where the Christ, who is really Neptune in a very high sense, is met for the first time. What about Pluto? Well, okay. We're told how important it is before the time of the first initiation. It is all about eliminations. We have to get a lot out of our system. There's a lot of poison in there that has been accumulated in the bottom of the aura over the many, many millions of years, and it has to be purged. We have to eliminate and cast out of our system those substances, those combinations which will prevent the reception of the soul. Vulcan and Pluto, well, Pluto rules for the disciple the base of the spine center, and Vulcan rules the crown. Well, they're not totally active in any final way here, but they are beginning to be active. So we purify and eliminate, and we begin to repulse. We're not functioning fully under the law of repulse, which requires some antichoronic work, because it's a soul law connected with the spiritual triad, and there is no real spiritual triadal connection until the antichorona is reasonably built. But repulse is occurring. We're detaching. We're killing, it's the planet of death, killing out desire. And we're coming to the gradual death of the personality. So one aspect of the personality living for itself, that is the physical instinctual nature, is being killed out here, and higher possibilities are taking its place. The appetites are what we are learning to kill out at this point of the first degree. Well, the base-crown relationship, yes, it begins, but actually doesn't come into full fruition until the fifth initiation. That's kind of interesting, at which point the base of the spine is the ruler of the initiation. Anyway, Pluto represents the burning ground, I suppose especially when combined with Mars, represents the burning ground before every initiation, and Uranus the final burning ground. So there's a great burning ground for all of humanity before the first degree, and for every individual disciple as well. We are passing through the refiner's fire. We are ejecting from our system so much that is useless or inhibiting. This happens, of course, in relation to the sixth petal as well, but it continues, the purification continues. Really, I can see that the power of Pluto would continue all the way to the fourth degree and be instrumental in bringing about a kind of death at the fourth degree, a death unto life. So, fire, the fire of will and aspiration create the burning ground, plus the fire added by the solar angel. So I think we can see the importance of Pluto here, as there are many eliminations still to achieve, and we have to somehow subdue the normal sacral and solar plexus responses, and Pluto can be instrumental in that, but even more instrumental with respect to the solar plexus at the second degree. What about the sun? Well, this is a strong sun petal, and we are becoming consciously the Son of God. It's in the initiation process. The rulership of Leo is found here, and the sun is exalted in sign number 1. So Leo rules the first initiation. Sun is important. Aries is exalted. Rather, the sun is exalted in Aries, which has to do with the entry into the kingdom of God. So Aries and Leo, it's a lot about the hero's journey. The solar god is Hercules. He is the would-be initiate. He is the disciple who is the initiate to be. And as far as the moon goes, it begins to fall away. It will be struck down in an important way at the 8th petal, and continues to fall all the way through to the destruction of the causal body, when the entire lunar nature is consumed. Okay, well, that is a discussion of the various planets in relation to the process of the 7th petal. Now, ideally, we have to really look at a person's involvement in life, see what the life looks like, and somehow through spiritual discernment, spiritual understanding, understand the petal process in which that person is engaged, probably, and of course, an overlapping process, I would say. My colleague Nicholas has his own methods here, and he says that the planet involved here is strongly Uranian, and we've already given the idea of Uranus and why it is so important in helping to achieve increasing freedom and the revolution. Now, I haven't really, when describing the last petal, I went through these color stages of human development, and what I see here is that I haven't really elaborated on this, but we are in the long, narrow cave, and we are moving towards the rosy cross, but are still a long way from it. And we are hearing the wailing, the cries of our fellow human beings. And we are attempting to serve. So we have passed through the red, we have passed through the green, we have passed through the orange, and we are moving in the dark cave towards the rose and the blue. What musical note might be sounded here? Let's see, I think I want to make sure that I have this correct. Yes, I do. It's the note sol, do, re, mi, fa, sol. Or beginning with C, it's the note G. And sol continuing to resound on the way to the third degree with the note fa lessening. We'll say that the note fa of the personality is lessening as we move towards the third degree. Now, I somewhere have my, I think I'll have to go get my pitch pipe at this point. So the note sol is the G note. Dom, di, dom, dum, dum, do, re, mi, fa, sol. That's the G note. And that will increase, it's in a way a blue note, it will increase until the third degree and really actually beyond. But the note fa, the F note, fa, sol, do. So the fa, which is the green note, is decreasing as the personality is decreasing in its power relative to the soul. So it's green, blue, like that, and that blue note is increasing in intensity. Another red note will come in later with the monad. So is there a musical chord involved here? And I would say, well, do, mi, sol, or C, E, G. Goes do, mi, sol, do, mi, sol. This is the triad that indicates the growing integration of the personality now by the soul. And maybe what we have here is the mi is quite strong at first, do, mi, sol, but increasingly it becomes like this, do, mi, sol, with the soul being stronger. So basically we're going from red to yellow to blue. The do is red, the mi is yellow, and the soul is blue. Now, you know, this is just an indication of notes associated. The exact science of how to use these notes and exactly what frequency we should use to represent them is in someone's hands. It's not yet in our hands. But we do know the soul note and also the SOL note is growing in power. A very, very interesting science, and in terms of healing, the Tibetan tells us it will be one of the first to really emerge, because the fourth ray method using sound will be one of the practical healing methods in the coming age, and the fourth ray will be getting stronger to help support this starting in 2025. All right, let's take a look at crises. What crises, if any, are characteristic of this stage? Well, the Virgo crisis of the birthplace, and it is particularly the birth of the soul consciously within the personality which is occurring here. In a way, long ago, with individualization, there was a kind of birthplace experience, but it was all rather unconscious. And now, after the cultivation of the inner soul within the personality, it is coming to birth, it's coming into emergence, it is seen in its own right. Now, there is also the crisis of initiation. It is coming in under Capricorn, and it's not yet the full crisis, but is entrance into the kingdom of God, and this crisis will increase in intensity all the way to the 5th degree and even beyond. What about the crisis of orientation? Let's see, all of this is found around page 472 or 473 of Esoteric Astrology. I think you know where we're going here. Let's try that, 472. Try that. Yeah, there it is, crises of the soul. And we see there are different places where crises are listed, and here 7 of them are listed, and elsewhere Libra is also listed in terms of the crisis of decision, and Leo is connected with the crisis of individualization, and Capricorn always with the crisis of initiation. So the crisis of orientation, it's the reversal, it's a new way of traveling. And we are continuing our reversal, continuing to tread more strongly the wheel of consciousness rather than the wheel of form. In the beginning, when the reversal is occurring, the wheel of form is rolling clockwise in a more powerful way than the wheel of consciousness moving forward. But eventually they equilibrize at some point. You kind of wonder whether this is not a point of equilibrium in this 7th petal, with the wheel of consciousness as strong in its movement and momentum as the wheel of form, and then gradually the wheel of consciousness, and probably by the time we reach the midway point between the 2nd and 3rd initiation, that wheel of consciousness becomes definitely more powerful than the wheel of form. So we're reversing, we're orienting towards a new kingdom, and the crisis of reversal is still underway. I'm wondering about Jimmy Carter and the initiatory process. Was it when he became I'm not sure about this, but this was interesting. He had so many Libra. He was like Gandhi in that way. He had the sun and the ascendant in Libra, as did Gandhi. And I suppose this is somehow pointing out the time of his election and whether or not it related to the age 63. I think he was younger, actually, when he was elected, but there's something about a crisis in his life here at the age of 63. It's hard to remember all of these things. I provided a lot of them, but some of them came from the group and were not along my own train of thought, so more difficult to remember in that respect. All right. going on. Excuse me. Is there number 48, is there a more cosmic law associated with this petal? Well, really the law of attraction is the strongest, because we are coming under the auspices of the soul, whose basic law is the law of attraction, some of the law of synthesis. We are beginning with the factor of synthesis because at the time of the first degree, we are told that the first synthesis petal is opening to a degree, and we are synthesizing many millions of years of living under the aspect of knowledge. The first synthesis petal deals with the synthesis of knowledge rather than of love or of will, but they will come in short order. So synthesis is to a degree involved here, and the note of the law of economy is sounding less strong. Number 49, is there any systemic law associated with this petal? Well, I'm mentioning here the laws of disintegration, magnetic control, fixation, sacrifice, and death. That seems like a lot, doesn't it? Well, the law of disintegration is gradually working as a third ray law. It involves Saturn, Libra, and the third ray. Of course, it really comes in stronger, very, very strong at the fourth initiation, but already we are beginning to disengage from the power of the personality. Magnetic control is the fourth law, systemic law, and it's associated with the solar angels, and as the soul begins to control the personality, which it certainly starts to do at the first degree, that law comes into expression. Law of fixation, as solar fire is fixed in the mind, which is held steady in the light. Law of sacrifice and death, we are beginning to die to the material life, the life of the lunar lords, of lunar compulsion, and the solar angel is becoming, not yet, but is becoming the sole luminary in the microcosmic sky. Most of us have a pretty microcosmic sky. We don't yet have, we are not yet the higher types of spirits for whom the macrocosm is a great reality. Okay, now, importantly, number 50, what soul law, if any, is most associated with this petal? Well, law of sacrifice, magnetic impulse, service, and repulse. Okay, let's see to what degree. The law of group progress, I think, well, we're not quite there, even though group consciousness is coming more strongly into realization. Well, the law of sacrifice, what's being sacrificed? The impulses of the lunar lords are being sacrificed. The physical and emotional at first. And maybe some preoccupation with the lower mind just for its own sake. A higher purpose is operating here. So we're at the beginning of the sacrifice petals, and we're dealing with Maya, which is etheric physical, and with some degree with glamour, which is emotional. Certainly there's a lot of battling with glamour going on between the first and second degree, and even taking initiation can heighten certain glamours. But definitely this is a sacrifice petal, so obviously the law of sacrifice applies to all of them. And the first degree tells us that we are sacrificing the unharnessed, unregulated tendencies of the instinctual physical nature. What about the law of magnetic impulse, the second law of the soul? Well, we're having some group response here, but it even operates more in the next petal, I would say. We're dealing with fellowship, starting that. And in Masonry, we call that the FC degree, or the fellow craft degree. The law of magnetic impulse will come in, but even more so again at the second degree. This is just the beginning of some of these laws, but definitely sacrifices there. Excuse me. The law of service, well, we're learning how to love our fellow human beings, and under the soul, we're beginning to serve. The very first requirement in the individual rules for initiation is to search within the heart deep cave, and if there we find the fire burns bright, warming our brother and not ourselves, then the hour is right to stand before the initiator. The law of service, it's the beginning of more selfless service. Remember, we were serving in the sixth petal with expectation of return. This is the beginning of service properly motivated and with decreasing expectation of return. Of course, I suppose there's a lot of people around the first degree who maybe have that born-again experience. Maybe it comes even before the first degree, but they certainly expect a reward. Their reward is in heaven. They will achieve heaven because they have accepted Christ. And so they serve quite selflessly, but with the background expectation that heaven is theirs already and is, well, the reward of the acceptance, but maybe also the reward of all their good works. That ongoing debate about whether one is saved by faith or by works, it seems in occultism that the emphasis is more towards the work than towards the faith. Or at least we have to prove our faith in works. Is the law of repulse here? Well, we are, via Pluto, repulsing certain tendencies, but we're not really connected with the spiritual triad, which is necessitated in the full expression of the law of repulse. So the law of repulse is the first of the triadal laws of the soul. So the Antakarana, in the sense in which we normally understand it, connecting the monastic permanent atom to the mental unit, has to be somewhat built here, and it's not yet built at this point. The lower Antakarana is there, which is initially connecting the personality to the egoic lotus, to what we call the soul. So triadal thinking is occurring later, not so much repulse. It needs the triad. So certainly the law of sacrifice is there. The incipient magnetic impulse is there. Increasing service is there. And we are doing some repulse, but we're not really under the law of repulse yet. So, are there the astrological triangle most associated with the petal? Well, I think I leave it go at saying there are so many of them. If we turned to page, just to give us a little start, maybe I didn't do all this before, but if we go to 170, whoop, it's not going to work, 170. We have spiritual man to the third initiation, heart for fellowship, throat for a new type of creativity, and the fifth, sixth, and seventh head centers taking some degree of control. So the will, the Vulcanian will, is coming in. This is the major triangle. I think we can also look at the ajna, heart, and solar plexus. The ajna for the integrating personality, the heart for fellowship, the solar plexus for aspiration. Well, there's many things we can do. We can talk about the throat center, the heart center, and the solar plexus, a new form of creativity under the sacrificial law of the soul is coming in. We create on behalf of the plan, and our desires are becoming subdued, and the heart is revealing those who we may serve. So indeed it is so many. But the head centers, the throat, and the heart seem to be the ones that are indicated here, with the solar plexus, solar plexus subsiding. Although, it can put up quite a big fight there, and I'm sure that if you're a Scorpio going through the second initiation, you have a solar plexus because it is rearing its head up and the desire nature is very strong, and you have to find a way to replace it with that which the intuition has revealed. So it's the big battle between selfishness seated in the solar plexus and love seated in the heart. Okay, so especially we have the 7, well, it may not be let's just say the head centers, heart and throat. I think those are very important here. And we are advanced man at this point, becoming ever more intelligent under the auspices of the soul connected with the heart, and the will of the soul is directing through the head centers and the other triangles as well. But the main one the Tibetan gives is this. I suppose there also could be a triangle that's important, the ajna, the throat, and the heart. I think there we have a real integrated spiritual intelligence growing under the inclusive impulse of the soul working through the heart center. For every person has a particular triangle which is most accentuated, brightest we might say, while other triangles are not necessarily dim, they're just less bright. So once we've established a certain triangle as bright, we move on to the next one, which will receive emphasis, and the one we had established as bright will seem less bright compared to the new triangle on which we are working. Eventually, that is. And by seeing what triangle is really focal in the life of the individual, again, the master can determine the degree of evolution. So what do we have here? Number 52, the senses and their extensions most associated with this petal. Well, the esoteric sense may be coming in, that is the intuitive sense. It is the seventh sense. It's not the common sense. So in Petal 6, we are really being quite realistic, using the common sense, the integrating mind, and we are certainly understanding ourselves as an aspiring personality who has many things on the physical plane to work out. Petal 7 might be considered, since it is the seventh sense, the beginning of the esoteric sense related to spiritual discernment, but also really to all three of those higher cities on the higher mental plane. So I begin to, as it were, hear the voice of the soul, the voice of the silence, the voice of conscience, the still small voice. And the sense of touch is being amplified because I feel the touch of the soul increasingly. But except, so touch is there, hearing is there, but except at initiation, I do not see the soul. So when I faced the Christ, I faced the soul. But that was a special heightened circumstance, and so it does not come through in the same way in normal life, but vision, of course, is increased. The various senses involved here, they are extended, and if we go to a treatise on cosmic fire, page 188, we see these extended senses, and we understand that some connection with sustained discrimination between soul and personality and spiritual discernment excuse me, is coming in. There is heightened response to group vibration that will increase, and I suppose a modicum of spiritual telepathy, which again will increase as the initiations are taken, but especially spiritual reading, spiritual discernment is coming in here. Maybe not so much yet the Buddhic and the Atmic extensions of the senses. Maybe some of the Buddhic extensions of the senses will come in with the eighth petal, and the Atmic extensions will be reflected at least when the ninth petal is unfolding. Okay, what guna, number 53, what guna is most associated? Well, Rajas giving way to Sattva under Libra. Libra is a very sattvic type of influence, and learning to live the balanced life between the soul and personality. Not yet has the second initiation occurred, which will strongly tip the balance. The golden rule is coming in here at the first degree. We're learning to tread that narrow path, which is Libran. It's the Christ path between the pairs of opposites. So our growing awareness of karma, again, is suggesting sattva coming in. But there is a balance here at the seventh petal. By the time petal 8 is really unfolding, it's the soul saying, I will command everything, I will take everything, but we're not there yet. So I think Rajas is gives us the idea of the active personality. The more the soul comes in, there's a degree of sattva. From another perspective, the entire personality is considered tamasic, the soul is considered rajasic, and the spirit is considered sattvic. But we're not so much dealing with the spirit at this point. Are there any advanced meditation themes which can be associated with this petal? And these are themes involving soul fusion, real soul infusion. And I would say no, not really yet. I mean, the theme of isolated unity is not strong. It's too early in the game. The theme of inclusive reason, we'll have to wait a little bit for that. And maybe some reflection of presented attributes. We get the sense of what the world needs, and we try to present those attributes. The third petal would be associated with the third aspect. Well, it's the first petal, third aspect. And presented attributes is that profound meditation theme, more for the advanced meditator, which is associated with the third aspect. So the law of service, which is strong in this petal, is under the third, it's the third law. In a sense, it has to do with materialization of an inner impulse. It actually is connected with the sixth ray, but 6 and 3 are strongly related, as we have discussed. So maybe there is some initial reflection of the idea of presented attributes. You don't simply have to be on the third ray or one of the rays of attribute to work with presented attributes. Dihe gives an example of how the Christ and the Buddha on the second ray in their soul nature worked with presented attributes, and so any of these major themes can be correlated with souls on any ray, but there's more the tendency of the first ray type to be associated with isolated unity, of the second ray type to be associated with inclusive reason, and of the third ray type, maybe including the seventh, to be associated with presented attributes. And yet they have a kind of generality as well. Well, I think we discussed the greater constellation that might be involved here. We did discuss the Pleiades and, well, the fading influence of the Pleiades in one respect, how strong Sirius is coming in another respect because of the path of initiation, and then also the Great Bear because the 7 head centers are becoming prominent, and the Great Bear through Vulcan is ruling those will centers which are controlling all the other chakras. In terms of Chela ship, well, okay, it is the phase particularly of Chela in the light, which is the first degree phase. And as we move on and do later work in the 7th petal and in the 8th, we become the, well, no, I don't think I should say that. Yes, Chela in the light is one, but I think I made a mistake here. I want to say that little Chela ship is still important because it represents the first degree. I don't know how I skipped over that. But anyway, the little Chela ship is undertaken here with the first initiation and the unfolding 7th petal. And as we work forward, Chela in the light becomes a possibility. We make our contacts on the physical plane. We contact a senior disciple, whether consciously or unconsciously, and there is a Chela in the light, close to the master, who is making reports upon our progress. What book are we into here? Is it the book of form? Is it the book of, well, let's see. It's the book of wisdom, I would say, not the book of life. There are 3 books. Excuse me. The book of forms, the book of wisdom, and the book of life. And we are just entering into the hall of wisdom, just entering in. So because of contact with the soul, increasing in our meditation and in our service, we are understanding something of a higher wisdom coming from the higher of the pairs of opposites. Well, okay. By the way, I have a little interpolation here from Esoteric Astrology. These are the 3 books. The Book of Form or of Manifestation, Humanity, the 12 Creative Hierarchies, and then the Book of Wisdom, 4 Disciples and the 12 Planets, and eventually the Book of Life. And I don't think we can really say we enter that until after the 3rd initiation, and then just in the very preliminary stages. So entering the Hall of Wisdom as we are, emerging from the Hall of Learning. The Hall of Wisdom is, well, it's associated with the final tier and also to a degree with some of the steps up to the final tier. We are true disciples at this point, and the planets are controlling in a sense, but also it's the esoteric nature of the planets which are operating, and this is very important. The esoteric rulerships begin to fade in, and we have to not relinquish the meaning of the exoteric rulerships. That would be a mistake, but we do learn that a new relationship with the planets is possible. We get new streams of energy. We have new objectives and new capacities related to the esoteric capacities or of the planets, or the way that the planets reflect within our form, bringing out the higher potentials of the form. Okay. Okay, friends. Right. I think the best that I can do or should do at this point is to call this program completed. So this would be the end of Egoic Lotus Webinar Commentary Program 51. It's part 3 of the Synthesis for Petal 7. It's about 3 hours and 4 or 5 minutes. I think my voice needs a little rest here before I go on. And the beginning of Egoic Lotus Webinar Commentary, Program 52, will be part 4 of Petal 7. We have another, another 10 pages of this document to go, and another 22 items to go, including the comprehensive final item 80, which are the miscellaneous statements. So I will be with you shortly, and we'll call it a day on this one and go on with program number 52. I hope I'm correct there, that it's not 53. 52, I believe it is. Okay. See you then. Bye-bye.